Hi guys! Today we are doing things a little differently. We are learning about 3.3 angle addition postulate. So you should have those fill-in notes that I gave you while you're doing this. You want to be filling those out as you go through. So it says the objective today is to learn about the angle addition postulate and then use it to solve problems. What you need to do is you need to fill in the blanks and any questions and answer any questions using this video. So the first question is, what is a postulate? You want to use your notes from chapter 1 to answer this question. Go ahead and pause the video and answer that question. Welcome back. The angle addition postulate. So this is postulate number, or hashtag postulate number 6. Postulate number 6. And what it is, so you have this and it has this blank, and what you want to put in the first blank is the word add. We are going to add the two smaller angles, the two smaller angles to, now your next blank should be equal the whole, and the last blank is angle. You add the two small ones to equal the whole angle. Here is the example, and you want to draw everything that I draw. So example, we are going to use the angle PQR. P is the point up there, Q is the vertex, and R is that point down there, PQR. Now, we also are going to add a ray QA, and now that I've added this ray, I have three angles. I have this small one in the top, PQA. I have this small angle below it, AQR, and then you can see that we have one big angle, PQR. What the angle addition postulate says is you can add the two small ones to equal the big one. So that's what I'm going to write next, and you should write this down too. The measure of angle PQA, which is the small one on the top, plus the measure of angle AQR, the small one on the bottom, AQR, has to equal the whole angle, the measure of angle PQR. It has to equal the measure of the whole angle. All right, let's look at number 1 together. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to draw this picture down. You have angle EFG and ray FH. So go ahead, I'll give you a minute to write this down. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to label it based on the information they give you. They say measure of angle EFH. That's this top angle right here, EFH. This angle right here is 35 degrees. So let's go ahead, let's add that into our picture. EFH is 35 degrees. Which also, they also tell us that HFG, this bottom angle right here, is 40 degrees. So we need to find EFG. We need to figure out what this whole angle is, EFG. So this may seem pretty straightforward. We want to use the angle addition postulate. So how do we do the angle addition postulate? We know we have to add the two small ones and it equals the whole. So we want to take the measure of angle EFH, add it to the measure of angle So I'm going to switch colors. We need to do, okay, 35 plus the 40, and that would give me that the measure of angle EFG equals 75 degrees. Don't forget your degrees there. Since it is an angle, we measure angle in degrees. That's number 1. Here is the picture that you will need to draw for number 2. Okay, so you can see we have angle XYW and angle WYZ, and together they create this whole angle XYZ. And I've even marked them. You can go ahead and mark them. The top one is angle 1 and the bottom one is angle 2. And I've already written the angle addition postulate. The angle addition postulate says if we add angle 1 plus angle 2, it should equal the whole angle, the measure of angle XYZ. Now they tell us some information again that we need to mark in our picture. We need to mark that the angle XYZ. Now XYZ represents this whole angle. And they tell me that the whole angle is 86 degrees. So I've added the 86 degrees. They also tell me the measure of angle 1, the little one on the top, is 22 degrees. So now I'm going to add that into my angle addition postulate. The measure of angle 1 I know is 22 plus, now I don't know what the measure of angle 2 is. When we don't know what something is, we're going to call it X, and it equals the whole angle. The whole angle we just saw is 86 degrees. So 22 plus X equals 86. Now if the whole thing is 86 and this piece is 22, how do we find the measure of angle 2? We're going to subtract 22 from both sides of the equation, and we get that X equals 64 degrees. Which means the measure of angle 2 equals 64 degrees. Which makes sense. This is 22 degrees, this is 64 degrees. Together they have to equal 86. Here is number 3. Number 3 starts using variables. So we have angle A, B, D. And you can see we have 2 smaller angles in there. We have A, B, C. And you can go ahead and put 2x. This represents the whole angle measure is 2x degrees. And then CBD, this angle measure here, that says 5x minus 6 degrees. And I've written the angle addition postulate. The measure of angle ABC, this one right here, plus the measure of CBD, that angle right there, has to equal the measure of angle ABC. Ooh, that's a typo. ABD. So, they tell us something in the directions. They tell us the measure of angle ABD. ABD is the full angle. So let's add this into our picture. The whole angle is 120 degrees. So, here we go. This whole thing we know to be 120 degrees. So, we want to set up an equation to solve for x. We have to solve for x in order to figure out what each of these angles are. Well, here's the equation we're going to use. What is the measure of angle ABC? They tell me that it's 2x. I'm going to use the addition symbol for addition postulate, and I'm going to add the measure of CBD. CBD is 5x minus 6, and it has to equal the full angle, which is 120. Now we can use our Algebra 1 skills to solve this problem, starting by combining my like terms. 2x plus 5x is 7x, minus 6 equals 120. I then have to add the 6 to both sides, and I get that 7x, I'll write it up here, 7x equals 126. You divide both sides by 7, Now I haven't finished. I still have to go back and I have to plug it in for both angle measures. The measure of angle ABC. The measure of angle ABC will have to equal 2 times 18, which would end up being 36 degrees. And there's one answer. The other answer, they want the measure of angle CBD. So again, I'm going to replace x with 18. So I have to do 5 times 18 minus the 6. Order of operations says multiplication first. So that becomes 90 minus 6, and that becomes 84 degrees. And that's example number 3. All right, so we're going to move on to what an angle bisector is. An angle bisector is a ray. A ray should go in that first blank. A ray. Remember, a ray has one endpoint and one arrow. So, I lost my marker. So it will have one endpoint and one arrow, something like that. And this ray, it cuts an angle. It's going to cut an angle because it's an angle bisector. It's going to cut an angle into 2 congruent, aka equal, so 2 congruent angles. So again, an angle bisector is a ray that cuts an angle into 2 congruent angles. So here's my example. Go ahead and write this down. Ray PW. Notice the endpoint is above the P, the arrow is above the W. Bisects angle QPR. We want to draw this angle first, angle QPR. So that's what I'm going to do. QPR. Looks like this. And now I know that PW is going to bisect it. Now here's P. So if we have PW, it's going to cut it straight down. And then I'll add W. Okay. Now what I know now is I know that these 2 angles are congruent. And we mark congruent angles with the loopy and a little tick on both of them to show that those angles are congruent. And let's write this down. The measure of angle QPW, the top one, the measure of angle QPW is going to equal the measure of angle WPR. So please add that into your notes. The measure of angle QPW, this top little angle, is going to equal the measure of WPR. Here is the picture for example 4. Go ahead and draw this down. We have angle CAN, and we have that AT bisects this angle. Now, if it bisects the angle, it's called an angle bisector, right? The ray is called an angle bisector, and we know things about angle 1 and angle 2. Angle 1 and angle 2 are going to be congruent since it bisects the angle. So, we want to write that down. Angle 1 is going to be congruent to angle 2. And I should even mark that in my picture. How do I mark it in the picture again? You put loopies with the tick marks on them to show those angles are congruent. Now they tell me something else in the directions. They also tell me that angle CAN is 130 degrees. So I also know that this whole angle is 130 degrees. They want me to figure out what 1 and 2 are. If the whole thing is 130, and each of those equal each other, how can I figure this out? If angle 1, we don't know, we'll call it x. If we don't know what angle 1 is, we can call it x. Now if angle 1 is x, angle 2 is the same thing. It's also going to be x. X plus x equals 130. Now where did I get this from? This is the angle addition postulate. If you add the 2 pieces, which are the same, it'll equal the whole angle. X plus x has to equal 130. We know x plus x is 2x equals 130, and we can can just take 130 and cut it in half, which a lot of you probably already thought about doing, taking 130, dividing it by 2, and getting that the angle measures are both 65 degrees. The measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 2, which equals 65 degrees. That's how you can write your answer. Okay, here's the last example, example number 5, and I've started drawing it, and you can go ahead and add this into your notes. You want angle RJT, you want JK to be the angle bisector. Now we also know that RJT is a right angle. A right angle, we show a right angle by using the box. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my box to show that that is a 90-degree angle. A right angle is a 90-degree angle. We need to find the measure of angle 1 and angle 2. So let's go ahead and add the top angle is going to be measure of angle 1. The bottom is going to be measure of angle 2. How do I figure this out? Well, I know that JK is an angle bisector, which means it bisects the angle. It cuts the angle into two congruent angles. So I'm going to mark that the angles are congruent with the loopy and the tick mark, to show angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Why? Because that's what bisecting does. It cuts it into two congruent angles. So the measure of angle 1 has to equal the measure of angle 2. Now, I know that the whole angle is 90. So I can take the 90 and I can cut it into two equal pieces. I can take the 90 and divide it by 2. Okay, take the 90, cut it in half, cut it into two equal pieces, and you would get 45 degrees. Okay, another way to think about this is saying, okay, again, this is x, this also has to be x, and x plus x has to equal 90. Using the angle addition postulate, saying that this little angle plus this little angle has to equal the whole angle, and that would give me 2x equals 90. I divide both sides by 2, and you can see I end up in the same spot because x will equal 45. So let's go back and say our answer, the measure of angle 1 has to equal the measure of angle 2, which has to equal 45 degrees. The measure of angle 1 has to equal the measure of angle 2, which is 45 degrees. And you can look at the picture and see that this makes sense. If this is 45 and this is 45, together they have to equal 90.